Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our September Talent Lens webinar. We are so excited to start this topic today that I know that's going to help so many people. We are Milo Associates. For those people that don't know us, I'm the CEO. My name is Swati Garg. And we've been doing this for about 8 years in September, which is pretty wild. And we focus in customer success and professional services recruitment. And the talent lens is something that we started last year, and we've been really, really proud of highlighting amazing CS and PS leaders and the C-suite and talking about topics that are going to be directly actionable and relevant to you on a daily basis. So we're really excited about this. So thanks so much for joining us. Rachel, next slide, please. So as I said, we focus on CS and PS. We do all levels. So we do individual contributor, middle management, and executive roles and C-suite roles, all related to the CS and PS space. We have three main services. So we have a full service recruitment, so more of a traditional recruiting firm. We have a CCO program, which is more fractional advisory and interim work with consultants that we partner with. And then we also have application review services, which is really just on-demand resume screening for internal teams when they're overwhelmed, especially in this market with the amount of applicants. So if any of that sounds interesting or appealing, let us know. I'd be happy to chat about it. Next slide, please. And lastly, a little bit about me. I went to the University of Illinois. Like I said, I started Milo about 8 years ago, and I launched a personal brand last year, or all around like personal and professional development. So if you want to talk about that, let me know. And I've gotten recognized in this space, which has been pretty amazing, and it's been a really great journey in the space. So let me know how I can help or connect. And I am super, super excited. Next slide, please, Rachel. I'm just going to talk for a second before I hand it to you, but so excited about today. Rachel and I met last year, actually, at the Customer Success Excellent Awards last year in San Francisco. And we happened to be sitting at the same table. And we just had a phenomenal conversation. We really connected personally. And then you obviously find out about all the amazing things Rachel's been doing. And we've stayed connected over the last year and a half. I've learned so much from her on a personal level, especially in time management. I think she does this extremely well, obviously teaching it, but also for herself. So I'm so grateful that she's here today to teach us on this subject, because I do think she is one of the experts in this space. And she, like I said, lives it. And she's going to teach people of all levels how to do this in their work. And I think we could take a lot for our personal lives too. So I'm very, very excited about this topic. I'm going to hand it off to Rachel, but thank you so much for being here today. I'm so excited.
Thank you so much, Swati. I am so excited for this as well. I will do the caveat that yes, I absolutely live this. It's how I run my business. It's how I run my life. I fail all the time at this. I would say I have about 75 to 80% compliance, and that's great. I am a huge fan of progress, not perfection, because I will spiral with that. So just know, if you see this and you're like, that's a great idea, and you try it tomorrow and your brain plays tricks on you and you move your focus time or whatever, this is normal. Try again. All these things are totally fine. It's tiny, tiny steps. You're not going to get, perfect at something overnight. Just see what the smallest possible way you can implement this is, and you're more likely to succeed with it over time. So, a little bit about me, Rachel Provan. I teach practical solutions for CS strategy, team leadership, and mindset, so that you can create a revenue generating CS department that actually works in the real world, where maybe CS isn't the top priority for everyone at your company. I mean, obviously it should be, but that's not always the way it works. So just so you know, I haven't made this stuff up out of whole cloth. I love that I have this, over 15 years experience. It's a little more now as a CS leader, building and scaling CS departments at everything from seed stage to Fortune 500 companies across various industries. I transitioned into coaching 2.5 years ago. And since then, I've helped hundreds of CS leaders maximize their CS departments, their salaries, and their careers. At the end of this presentation, I'll give you a little bit more information on how we can work together if you're interested, mainly just my website. But right now, I want to get going because I have so much to teach you today, and I'm really excited. So, yeah, I already told you guys that. Hi, speeding along with time already. Here we go. Um, so, time management, right? It's a little different for CS. So, if you look up time management, it would be really easy for me to give you kind of a bog standard presentation on time management. I could teach you about the Eisenhower matrix, chunking, time blocking, time boxing, eat the frog, Pomodoros, most important tasks, getting things done. And honestly, those are all really great. I have used all of those at different times with different varying levels of success. I'm going to briefly touch on the two in bold, which is Eisenhower matrix and time blocking. But for the rest, I'm going to advise you to take a screenshot and Google them because there's a ton of information on them on the internet. But I want to give you very specialized recommendations for CS. Cool stuff, though. All right. So I could give you all of that and it wouldn't matter because this is CS and we're playing a very different, specialized, more advanced game because there's a lot of mindset here. And what I mean by mindset is not just your mindset, but the mindset of others in your company. Right now, CS is not getting very much recognition at all. We're sort of being tasked with too many things. We're being asked to basically save the economy, save the company. And if you don't do it, it's your fault. And if you do it, well, that's just your job. Why would you expect to be, given congratulations around that? We're doing so many roles, and I don't think it's really working. So, um, this is not a job where you can just show up, do your work, and go home. A lot of it is resetting expectations, selling the value of customer success, resetting expectations on what it actually is and what you have to do to achieve those results. Because just calling something a CS department and then just treating it like the miscellaneous department is not going to get you the results of a CS department. So I see a lot of time people just making a miscellaneous department, throwing everything at CS, and then saying CS didn't work. Well, you didn't have CS. So, generally, you hear a lot about strategy, and we'll go a little bit into that as well. But what really is going to make you successful, the problem isn't often strategy. It's all the random crap that no one knows what to do with, but doesn't want to handle themselves, none of which leads to increased NRR. So, I've seen CS teams tasked with case studies for marketing, creating and running webinars, new feature release communications, customer advisory boards, support escalation, demos for sales, because hey, you're better at it. Upselling, but the commission still goes to the AE, et cetera, et cetera. Chasing down late payments. None of those are really in our purview, and yet we're tasked with that and more all the time. It's because they don't understand what it takes to do our job. So this can feel like a time management issue, but the reality is time is fixed. It cannot be managed. Time is not the problem either. The problem is how much you say yes to, right? Most CS professionals I see are trying to fit 10 pounds of potatoes into a 5-pound bag. And something a lot of people, I work with a lot of CS leaders and they get put on a lot of meetings, meetings upon meetings upon meetings. And that's important. Your voice needs to be heard in those, but you still have to be able to do your work at work. And you have to prioritize your work, the work that's going to impact NRR if you're a CS leader, or the work that's going to help get your customers the results they came for as a CSM. Those are the two things that we're generally responsible for. NRR, renewal, expansion, those are going to happen only after your customers achieve their goals. That is table stakes. Doesn't mean you stop with them when you reach their goals, but that is really the first thing that has to happen. So you have to make time in your day to actually do the work that will get those results. It can't be everyone puts everything on my calendar, and then the time I have left is the time I have to do the work to get my results. Um, even between emails, right? So that's what a lot of people are doing, and it's completely understandable, especially if no one told you how to do this. We're people pleasers, we want to say yes, but oftentimes when we do that, we actually end up disappointing people. So you can't change how fast time moves. You cannot change how many things you can fit in a day. We're all looking for that magic solution that's going to allow us to do 2, 3 times as much. It doesn't exist. Here's what you can change. You can change the perception of what customer success does, um, and that it's important, why it exists. You can change the prioritization, um, and one of the ways that you do that, not even change prioritization, you can put prioritization into place, because that is something that is an essential skill in CS. We're constantly juggling a million things and having to reprioritize. So in doing that, you need to focus on alignment, aligning with your boss on, hey, is this still the most important thing? Is this what I should be spending my time on? Once you have that, you can manage your schedule and schedule in time to work on those most important tasks. And finally, what you say yes to. Yes cannot always be your default answer. You can work on it with your boss so you're not pissing anyone off, but there are absolutely ways to say, to set kind boundaries without upsetting anyone, and being well within your rights. So, on to the next. So I did say I wasn't going to cover a lot of these, but I am going to cover the Eisenhower matrix, because this is how you juggle priorities. So this is the Eisenhower matrix. If you haven't seen it before, going up is not important, important, and going across is urgent, not urgent. Generally, what you want to do is just brain dump a list of everything you have to do, or hopefully you have all of this stored somewhere, whether it's in your email, whether it's in a task management system. Find some way to understand and have in front of you everything you have to do, and then just like really quickly mentally run it through the Eisenhower matrix. Um, that way, you're going to understand if it's urgent, do it now. Uh, Not urgent, but, or sorry, urgent and important. By the way, important is not the same as urgent, and people mix the two up all the time. Because, just because someone is feeling irritated, or someone, you have an upset customer, that doesn't make it urgent. Um, it it is important, but it doesn't mean you have to do it right now. Most customers are not going to leave if it takes an extra half hour, an hour to get back to them. But what does get missed, things that are not urgent, like, no, you have time, it doesn't have to be tomorrow, but are important, those are things that are actually going to make the difference. That's how you set your strategy. Because if you think about it, like, when in the day are you supposed to work on strategy? When are you supposed to work on, looking at your whole book of business and saying, am I spotting any trends here? Why are the people who are successful succeeding? Why are the people who are churning, what do they have in common? What has worked for me as a CS leader, a CSM in the past? And how can I double down on that? That is incredibly important, but it's not urgent. And what I see most people doing is focusing on the urgent, the things that people are writing in all caps about, and pushing off the important to tomorrow and tomorrow and next week. And, it'll be less crazy next week. I'll deal with it then. And the thing is, it's the things in the not urgent but important sector, oops, uh, that will get you, that are your KPIs, that will keep your job for you, that will help get you promoted. These are things you can never lose sight of. And I understand how hectic it is. Believe me, I've been in this industry since my 20s, which was a long time ago. So I really do get it. It's about taking out a little bit every day to work on this so that it's not all of a sudden your year end review and they say, what happened? Like we're exactly where we were or worse. Oops. So let's see. Yes. Okay. So I have something that I call the focus formula. It's something that works for me, has worked for a lot of people, a lot of my clients, a lot of students in CS Leadership Academy. And it's really not complicated. You take 1 hour per day, you schedule it on your calendar. You may have to go 2 weeks into the future in your calendar to find an hour of the day that you can do consistently. I recommend the morning because you're less likely to get, you know, exhausted, mentally exhausted. You want to still be a little bit sharp. Not possible for everyone. Like if you're working with Europe, you're probably going to have, and you're in the US, you're probably going to spend your morning in meetings. But if at all possible, block off that hour, 9:30 to 10:30, something like that. Close your email, close your Slack. This is the only way it works. Put your cell phone just out of reach, other side of the room. You can still hear it if it rings, people calling, but it's not right there where you can pick it up because we're so used to it at this point. You're just going to end up picking it up. So away from you, 1 hour a day, focused on one strategic initiative. What is your top priority? What is the number one thing that you can put into place that will impact your retention levels, whether that's NRR, GRR, which is just, churn prevention, what is going to affect your numbers? Pick one. You can't do every good idea you have at once, or none of them will happen. So pick one per quarter, 1 hour a day, and just work on the very next step in that project. Don't worry about the whole thing. One of your first sessions can be breaking down that project into its component steps. You can get AI to do this very nicely for you. You can say, hey, this is the project I'm working on. Like, let's say I want to revamp our onboarding process. Here are the issues that we've had, and here's what I'd like to do to mitigate those. Here's what I'm looking to put in place. Please break this down for me, by week, what I should be working on, and it'll do it for you. And then you can just follow the plan. So just focus on that one piece of the plan each day. Because I don't know about you, I get overwhelmed when I have to look at something like revamp onboarding. Where do I even start? It's a lot easier for me to look at something and say, oh, today I'm supposed to look up 3 websites that talk about onboarding best practices. That I can do. That's not scary. That's not vague. All right. So you want to keep it practical and sure. Why am I thinking concise? I'm thinking like solid, something that you actually know that's not vague. So in order to do this, a lot of people are like, I can't just shut off my email and Slack for an hour a day. Are you kidding me? Yes, you can. The way that you are able to do this most often, talk to your boss about it. It doesn't matter what level you're at. Everyone can benefit from this. I've had CSMs, CS leaders talk to their bosses, and it's about taking this strategic hour, and it's actually taken off through the whole company. No one is like, that's a terrible idea, and I don't want you to do it. Doesn't happen. So say like I'd just like to take 1 hour a day to focus on strategy, to look at, to work on this project, or to focus on my book of business and identify the most important people to talk to. Just show what you're going to be doing with that hour, because most CS teams are in kind of a reactive motion unless you have a very mature CS organization. Taking 1 hour a day out of that reactive mode and putting it into being proactive. That's how you switch from reactive to proactive. Everybody wants to know how you do that. It's by taking charge of your time and spending it on the things that are going to move the needle, that are going to change how you're currently working. So the way to do this also, when you have so many priorities on your plate, the work is never ending. If you have a huge list of things that you have to do, which you most likely do in this role, this is why it's also important to list them all out. Have a place that they're listed out that you can, like turn around your monitor or screen share and show your boss. Say, okay, I just want to align with you on something. There's a big difference between saying, I have too much to do, and saying, I want to align on our priorities. So what I recommend is showing that list of things that you have to do that is on your plate and saying, I just want to align on priorities. This is what I'm currently tasked with. From my understanding, here are our top priorities. These are the things that are going to most impact the bottom line. These are the activities I can do that are going to lead to increased NRR. And point out which those are. Get buy-in on this. Say, like, would you agree with that? Is that still the case? Uh, and be open to whatever they say. Yes, no. If it's yes, great. If it's no, okay, great. What would we like to reprioritize? Because the answer is not do everything. There can only be there can only be one top priority, and there can only be a couple sub. The answer is not you have to do all of it. Because if you're trying to build anything, I think of it like building a bridge. You're trying to get a result. So you're trying to get from one side to the other. If you start building a bridge and then start building a bridge and start building a bridge and start building a bridge from different projects, guess what never happens? You never get to the other side. You never get a result on any of them, which you probably could have knocked out one or two while you were busy starting all these bridges. Um, so basically saying to your boss, these are the priorities, great. Given that, what I have over here, all these tasks are more than will fit in a day and in my given work week. So we can either have someone else handle them or put them in a parking lot for now. Do you have a preference? What are your thoughts on that? What can we do with those? Because if the answer is just do it anyway, it's like, all right, then what would you like me to swap out? For my understanding, this is the best route, but I want to make sure that we're in agreement on that. So product is really good at this. If you tell product like, hey, we kind of need you to fix this bug. I know it's not your favorite thing to do, but customers are having issues with it. It needs to be fully built out, not 85%. They will then tell you, okay, but you're not going to get that feature that we promised those customers next month. It's now going to take another 2-3 months. They're not going to say, yes, we'll do it all. They're going to say, all right, what do you want to swap it for? We have to get better at doing that because it's reality. The reality is not going to be that all of a sudden you can do these things. So it's better to make a decision and decide what you're going to prioritize. Because the whole do more with less thing, the way to do that, I hate that phrase, I think everyone does, but the way you do that is by changing your strategy, by prioritizing the things that matter most, not by just saying, all right, we had 10 people, now we have 5, you do it and do it better. That doesn't work. So one of my favorite tricks here is to say no with your calendar. So what does that mean? That means looking at those list of tasks and blocking out time on your calendar to do them. Maybe you have a couple client meetings, maybe you have a couple internal meetings, those are on there. Anywhere else, fill in. Maybe you have to fill in 3 half-hour spots in that day when you're going to check email and answer it instead of switching back and forth every 5 seconds. Maybe you have to put your strategic hour. Put in everything that you have to get done so that your job is not on the to get to later after you finish everything else that everyone else wanted you to do. Your work comes first. So once that's scheduled in, a beautiful thing starts to happen. And people go to book meetings with you, not necessarily meetings that you need to be at. They look to book time with you and they're like, oh, wow, calendar's really full. And they'll just send it in an email instead. Because they realize like, oh, it doesn't look like there's any good times for us to, I'll just give it to you this way. It's much faster, it wastes a lot less time. And you're not having to say no personally to them. It's just clear. If someone asks you to move things, if that person is not your boss, say, I'm so sorry, I can't. It's not a question, it's not a discussion. I wish I could, I can't. Not even I wish, I'm so sorry, I can't. I have to get that done. So it's not fun. It's scary. You can do it. Try it. The world will not end, I promise you. All right. So going back and just recapping, perception, no more miscellaneous department. Here is what we do. Here is how we do it. you can't just give us all your random tasks and expect an increase in NRR and expect long-term health, right? And there are consequences to not doing those things, right? Prioritization, pick what has the greatest impact. Alignment, get in alignment with your boss so that no one can say to you, oh, you shouldn't have been working on this, you should have been working on something else. Set your schedule so that you can do your work. It's such a crazy thought to so many people, and it's really okay to put things on your calendar that are not meetings. um Oops. And choose what to say yes to. Learn kind boundaries. There's a big difference between saying, no, I don't have time for that, what are you thinking, and I wish I could help with that. I understand how important that is. And I really wish I could. I am just swamped. But let me know how that goes, okay? Most people are not going to freak out on you over that. So that's just, a quick overview of how I handle time management, how I teach time management in CSLA. There is a lot more mindset to it. Because most of the time it's not going to be other people saying, you have to go to this meeting, you can't spend your time on this, you have to spend it on something else, you have to reply within 30 minutes or off with your head. Those are things that you're telling yourself. So getting out of those thoughts and saying, all right, well, let's just see what happens if I try. What if I don't answer someone's email in 30 minutes? Is there an SLA around that? There shouldn't be in CS. There can be SLAs in support. But I think so long as you're within 24 hours, you're probably the expectations would be realistic. So it's okay to schedule your own work. Finally, if you want to connect with me, you can go to my website, provansuccess.com. I will put it in the chat. I had another slide that had QR codes and then I forgot to swap it in. But you can go to provansuccess.com, where you can find my newsletter. You can sign up there. I send weekly-ish short, actionable tips for how to succeed in CS, practical strategies, tips. I have a podcast called Psychology of Customer Success, where I nerd out on psychology and how human behavior applies in CS, why people aren't just going to do what's logical because none of us is logical, and how you can actually work with how the human brain really works to get the results both you, your customer, and your company are looking for. So those are all the ways to work with me. Customer Success Leadership Academy, we just started our most recent cohort. There will be a new one in either January or February of next year. That's for new or struggling CS leaders. And it's the entire package of how to do that job, how to nail that role, from leadership to strategy, time management, executive presence, organizational politics, all that fun stuff. So you can find information about all those things on my website. And for now, I want to hear from you because that's quite enough talking for me. All right. So let's see here. Swati, come back.
I'm back. Hey, Rachel, that was amazing. I do have your slide with your connect with me, so I'll throw that in the chat. If you just give me 10 seconds, I can do that. And then I have some questions for you, and we can get our fireside chat started if that's okay.
Of course.
Yeah, give me 10 seconds.
So who does stuff like that right now? I see we have a couple people saying that they have focus time. I love that, Catherine. First thing Monday morning. That's really just such an enviable position. First thing Monday morning, that is your time to really say, what is this week going to be, before it just takes you like the sea. Fridays, yep. A lot of people use Fridays for it. Let's see. Yep. Here we go. Let's see. Okay. Very nice. Yes, thank you for that. So we've got the screenshot there, so you can see. Yeah, if you click that will open. Oh boy, I can pull it over here. Look at that. Look at that.
That's amazing.
Ah.
Well, please connect with Rachel, and please put your questions in the Q&A. We have some fireside fireside chat questions we're going to get started with. But this is a great way to connect with Rachel, connect with me. I actually have a question, pressing question from your presentation that I'd love to ask. And then obviously we're going to get to the fireside chat as well. But one of my questions, I loved the focus formula. And I wanted to ask, do you do you create a plan first and then divide that in like 1 hour chunks? Like how do you break that
Nope.
down?
So what I do is the chunks are always there. I set that hour aside. I do this in my business too. I set that 1 hour a day aside. I call it working on the business instead of in the business. And it's the same thing with CS, working on your strategy instead of
Yeah.
reacting all the time. So that time is always there. I quarterly focus on what's going to fill that time. What projects am I going to work on? What is the one thing that will move this forward? Um, and I have one strategic initiative per quarter because there can only be one first priority. I have other things I work on, of course, but I'm dedicated that 1 hour every day. I go to, let's see if I can find it, because I do want to share this. What is it again? Um, yeah, I'll come up with the name. There's something you can do it regularly on ChatGPT, but I have a really cool like little robot thing that breaks down a task for you, like a strategic initiative for you really, really well.
Mhm.
Um, and it's amazingly good at CS. It was not designed for CS. I can't believe I'm blanking on it. I will look at it. Oh, I have it. I have it over here,
Oh,
right? It's under Goblin Tools. So I'm going to bring this over so you can see goblin.tools, and you want to go over to magic to do. Okay. Breaking things down so you don't have to. So let's say we have the onboarding scenario. Redesign or optimize. Okay. So I'm going to hit enter. And then I'm just going to hit this little magic wand here. Do, 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 do. La, la. And now it's going to tell me what to do every day. And I just click through that list. I copy and paste this into my Trello, and I have that on separate from my to-do list is my project list. At 10 o'clock in the morning every day, I go over to my project list. I look at what's next on here. I do as much of that as I can. Hour finishes,
wow.
I shut that and go back to my world. Yeah,
That's amazing. I love that. I've never heard of this. Um,
I love it.
yeah, I'm already getting compliments in the chat about it. Thanks so much for sharing. I've
Yeah,
never heard of Goblin tools. That's so
it will also tell you what to make from chef. You can be like, here's what's in my fridge, and it'll tell you what to cook for dinner.
cool. I need that.
So it's useful for many things. But yeah, this is my favorite. And this is, oh, let's say there's something in here and you're like, I have no idea how to do that. Guess what? Um, Click on that one and you get a bunch of subtasks there.
Oh, wow. That is so cool.
Yeah. And really it will get, you can make things more complicated for yourself by doing this too much.
I was gonna say this is very,
But
very granular.
right. But if you're like, I truly have no idea what you're talking about, I love that it will do this for you because anyone who teaches this stuff, our brain is going to skip steps
Mhm.
because we've done it so many times. We don't realize why we do certain things anymore. We don't know to explain certain things. That's why I am a much bigger fan of humans than I am of AI most of the time. This is the situation where I think it's really helpful.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. I love that.
Sure.
Um, So I'm going to kind of go into some questions for the fireside chat. We'd love for you to put your questions in the Q&A. We will get to them in about 5 or 10 minutes. So please put in some questions. Rachel, if you want to stop screen sharing at this moment, unless you think you want to continue sharing some tools and stuff, we can obviously go back.
Okay. Sounds good.
Awesome. So
I stopped sharing, right?
yes, you did.
It worked. Okay. Thanks.
So first question, What are some of the biggest misconceptions about time management that CS leaders commonly fall into?
I think they think that they have to say yes to everything. Um, Especially if you're a newer leader and you've only been in an IC role before, there's less of an opportunity in an IC role to be like, can't make that my priority, sorry. The further up you go into leadership, the more often you have to say no. Like,
Yeah.
think about what a CEO does. Their job is basically to say no 90% of the day, or the company would have no money.
Mhm.
Um, the further up you go, the more you need to be able to see the big picture of, this is really where I need to focus my time. Here's why, and here's what that looks like. Um, if you don't know how to do that, that's going to be really daunting. And we tend to be people pleasers here in CS. We're helpers, people pleasers. We don't want to say no. We genuinely do want to help, and we're excited. So we don't want to say no. And you have to be realistic. All those memes about like, who was this person who said yes to this party? Like, I hate parties. Um, I'm really regretting Friday me for saying yes to this Monday morning meeting. Uh, Make plans for your Monday morning self who doesn't love meetings. Remember who that is, and not just because like this seems really cool. Just because you could help doesn't mean you should help. I know that's terrible, but people undervalue CS so much that you cannot be throwing yourself into every conversation just because you could add something useful. Because guess what? If you do that, people are going to just use you for the information all the time and not do it themselves. And that's how we end up doing everyone's work and being like, why can't anyone do anything without me? Well, if you design it that way.
Yeah,
So
that's such an
that's a big
important
one.
skill. That's such an important skill is like the structure and the design is like more than half of it. That's a great,
Yeah.
that's a great, thank you.
It's hard to say no. I have little scripts for myself in email drafts so that I can do it, because otherwise I'd just be like, oh, the amount of time it's taking me to figure out how to say no to this, I could just do it. I could just do it. And I had to come up with like a way to say no nicely.
Yep, I understand. I personally struggle with that too. I like doing everything and being everywhere, and it's just not possible.
Yeah.
Really not. So, I really appreciate this. That's awesome. Why do you think being busy, in quotes, is often mistaken for being productive in the CS?
Hmm. I think that's a whole, and a lot of people are going back to office, so it's going to be even more so. Um, the whole sense of like, your workers should be busy and having eyes on your workers, and are they busy, did they look, there's that sense of, if you're not busy, something is wrong. So people do feel like, well, at least I'm doing something, which means I'm working towards some kind of goal. There should be a result because I'm taking action. And it doesn't mean you're taking the right action. There will always be a lot of actions to take. I can run all day east in search of a sunset. That's a lot of action. I don't think it's going to work out very well. Um,
That analogy.
so but I do see that a lot in the whole return to office culture. I don't know if you like, it wasn't my favorite show, but there was a Seinfeld where where George just walked around looking pissed off and busy, and people gave him a promotion. And it's not far off, I'm sorry to say. Uh, it's a power move to be like, I am, to not be too busy, to be focused. That is what the more senior leaders that I talk to, it's like, of course I have focus time. Are you kidding me? But it's one of those things that nobody teaches you. So it makes you feel better. It makes you feel like you're doing something against this terrifying clock of having to do something that you're not necessarily sure how to do.
Wow, that's amazing.
And you're
And I
also
actually
able to turn it around and be like, you told me to, though. You told me to work on this.
yeah. No, that's a really good point. I actually say the action piece that you said a lot. I do think it's really important to take the right action. And I really like
Yeah.
how you kind of use that in this. And the sunset example is really, really good. So thank you for sharing that. How does strategic time management impact the value CS leaders provide to their teams and customers?
I mean, it's really about, as a CS leader, to me, the time you're spending there is generally going to be on maturing your CS department, looking at not only your strategy with your customers, but also your operations, you know, building a better mousetrap, as I like to call it.
Yeah.
You're not going to get a more mature CS organization by just continuing to do what you've always done. It's taking that time to step back, look at the strategy. Guess what? Sometimes you'll change something, you'll try it, it won't work, and that's totally normal. People are terrified to try something new because what if it fails? So try. You don't have to roll out everything to everyone. Start by trying it on a few customers, see how it works. No, it's not perfectly scientific, but it's a big bet to roll something out with everyone. Uh, as a CS leader, one of the biggest things that you end up doing is protecting your CSMs from everything that's trying to be put on them and the pressures that are being put on them. Um, I know a lot of CS leaders who are very stressed out. They're just like, I just want to protect my team. I don't want them dealing with what I have to deal with. So the way one of the ways out of that is that strategy and that communication back up the chain, saying, I hear you. That's very important. Here's what we're trying to achieve. Here's what's involved. And here's why we're doing it this way for the entire business. You can never just be focused on CS. Here's why CS needs to do this. It's here's why the business needs to do this, or consequences. And by the way, the consequences of not having a CS organization and say just having onboarding, training, and AEs like they used to, and kind of are starting to again. It's the difference between 70% retention and 95% retention. So if they're cool with dropping 20 to 30% of their bottom line,
I think when you put it that way, right? I think people have to listen.
loss of loss aversion is much more effective than here are the benefits. You don't always want to be a downer, but people are more afraid of losing their money than they are excited to get new money. Like people are number one, I don't want to lose what I have because that's scary.
Yeah, I love that. I'm like making a huge note of that. I absolutely love
That's a whole new present. If you go to Zero In, I'm giving a whole presentation on cognitive biases like that and how to use them to your advantage in customer success in an ethical way.
Yeah, that's amazing. I will be there. So if y'all be there, please make sure to say hi to Rachel and I
Yeah.
at Zero in
And I'll
October.
be sprinkling it into my podcast. Don't worry. I make sure everyone gets some, but they get it first because they nabbed me.
That's amazing. How can CS leaders balance responsiveness with maintaining focus on strategic priorities? I know you talked about this a little bit, but anything else that you'd want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's about setting expectations on responsiveness. The earlier you can do this, the better. But I mean, you can always start from where you are, saying, you know what, I've realized I've been looking at my time and I realized I spend more time switching back and forth between emails. And I don't know that that my responding to emails within 15, 30 minutes is really making a difference, but it is making it so I can't do as much work as I'd like to. Would it be okay if I had like a 2, 3 hour window? It depends on what your job is, and what the sort of product you have is. I used to work for an SEC filings company, and 5:30 was when the markets closed every day. So I knew that a time for a strategic hour was not from 4 to 5 or 4:30 to 5:30. I had to be very responsive then because there were going to be a lot of shoot moments during that time. So it's understanding what you're dealing with, but also reminding yourself, because we like to make ourselves very important. Like, we're not doctors. No one is dying. No one is bleeding. Maybe someone's a little pissed off. They'll be pissed off in an hour, I promise you. It might even give them a little time to gain some perspective. Um, but if there's any way in the world you cannot have your email show, there's a thing in Gmail, you can still have it open, but just have it not show the little bubble with the number at the top, because it's playing on your dopamine. You're going to open it if you see it. Because it's like, did I win the lottery? I didn't buy a ticket, but that could be it. Like your brain is pretty primitive, and it's like, what's in there? What's in there for me? Is it bad? Do I need to know about? So just take it off the table. Try it. Don't again, try it for an hour. I know you're not going to do this all day. Try it for your strategic hour and look at how much you get done. it will be shocking. But again, it's setting that expectation for yourself, believing that it's okay, and communicating that to others.
Yeah, that's such an important message. Thank you, Rachel. I'm going to ask one more question, but if anybody has any questions, please, this is the time to put it in the Q&A section. Otherwise, I definitely have more questions for Rachel, but want to make sure that people get an opportunity if they have one. Right now would be the time to put it in. So, what role do boundaries play in time management, and how can they help prevent burnout?
It's interesting, again, like time, flat, can't change it. It's really a boundaries issue. It's a mindset issue. There is no bigger mindset challenge other than maybe executive presence than time management. Because it all has to do with your beliefs about how you should be spending time, whether you have the authority to say no to something, whether you have the knowledge to say, this is what's important, this isn't. It's something I always tell my students to do because they get this focus formula the first week of
Wow.
CSLA. And everyone's like, yeah. And everyone's like, yeah, you know, I mean, I have it as a freebie in on my website, but because I really want everyone to do it. But what's interesting is I was like, okay, so you're all going to go and do that, and that's part of your homework. And what I don't tell them is I come back, you know, we come back the next week, and I'm like, how many people actually did it and stuck to it? And out of like 25, 30 people, you'll see like four. I'm like, okay, we have four liars. Excellent. You know, it's like maybe not every day. Did anyone do it one day? And you'll see most people. I'm like, fantastic. All right. You're getting there. That is, you know, if you close down Slack and email, like you are fighting against your brain, which believes this is the safe route for me, right? You're fighting against like, I'm not going to be safe if I do this. That's really what you're fighting against. It's evolution. So it's a big thing to ask. So you got to be a little gentle with yourself and also willing to kick your own butt. But the important, I ask them to, all right, in the next week going forward, do it again. Anytime you move it or don't do it, I want you to write what you did instead and why. I'm not going to shame you.
Ooh, I
We're
love
just going to
that.
talk about it. Like anyone who wants to, it's like, all right, well, here was my thinking. And it's like, all right, I get that. What would have happened if you said, I'm sorry, I'm not available. Could we do it at 2? Like to your boss. Or what if you said, like, I'm so sorry, I'm not available at that time, or I can't do that right now? What would have been the immediate consequences? And your brain, when you're not speaking out loud, is a lot less rational. Your brain's going to be telling you, I'll get fired. But you're not going to say that out loud when someone actually asks you that because you know it's not the truth. But in that moment, it really felt like it. We're
Yeah.
risk averse. But by actually thinking that through, documenting it, you start to notice, like, I mean, maybe it's not that big a deal. Maybe I could. And it allows you to see where you're having thought distortions.
Yeah. I mean, I think saying no for anything for people that never say no is super challenging, right? Whether that's, having being a guest blogger, a speaking engagement, or
Yeah.
doing that extra meeting or staying an extra hour, right? Like I think it's really daunting until you do it. So I do think the first step is trying it. I think that's really, really good.
Yeah. And understanding that saying no is not just no. You know, like that's what we're worried about. You can still be nice and say no.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. Do you I don't know, do you have like a sentence or 2 that you love that's like, "Okay, this is, like,
Yeah.
how I might say no."
Yeah. Yes. Um,
Sorry, I'm putting you
because
on the
the issue
spot
is say
here.
no, not at all. Please put me on the spot. I got it. So the issue with saying no to someone, the reason it's sometimes going to be triggering for them is because here's what's going on in their brain, right? What do you mean you can't do that? Do you think you're more important than I am? Wait a minute, does everyone think that they're more important than I am? Oh my God, I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to get fired. I'm going to end up in a bridge, under a bridge with my children.
Oh,
Okay, that's where it goes really fast. Maybe not to that degree, but just like that's why they're taking offense because they're terrified that other people are going to think that you're more important. So if you allay that by showing that you understand the value of what they're asking and why that's important, if you acknowledge that, you're going to allay that little scared demon. You're going to, so saying something like, that is really, I understand why that's so important. I really wish I could. Um, like that sounds really interesting. That sounds really cool. Like I understand that's going to make such an impact on our clients by doing X, Y, and Z. So showing, seeing them, recognize them. It's like active listening while saying no, validating that it's important, but that it can't be done by you right now.
What about you said right now? That was my next question. What about like no versus not right now?
Well, I didn't say to say not right now. That's in your own head to get used to it. Don't say I can't right now. Saying like I'm so sorry. I wish I could. I just have too much on my plate. Not right now. Too much on my plate. They're like, well, what about in 2 weeks? Like, again, I can't promise that because I wouldn't be able to give it the attention that I know it deserves because I have these other priorities that I have to focus on because this is what I am responsible for in my job, that I have to deliver on this. And I'm always going to have to pick that first.
Okay. No, that's fair. That's super fair. Thank you. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I feel like that's really good real life, like actionable steps people can take right away, like
Yeah.
literally to their next meeting if they needed to.
Yeah.
So
Write that, rewind this, write it down, parrot it, steal it. Yes.
yeah, I love that. Okay, so can you share a real life example of when you transformed your approach to time management?
Yeah. I mean, I used to say yes to everything and I was excited about it and I wore it like a badge of honor that I was so busy. Um, but the fact is, and again, I still fall down with this, especially running my own business. It was affecting my family. They were getting the worst version of me. And if you asked me why I was working so hard, it was always like, oh, my family. Um, and there's something that doesn't quite work about that math. So I had to dig into like, all right, what I'm not thinking about my family when I'm doing this. And taking them for granted, taking for granted that they're going to take exhausted me, who's just kind of harumphing answers. Um, and just kind of realizing I didn't like that. It's not how I wanted to spend my kids' youth with them, like with them wanting to play and me being like, I'm too tired. Um, so having that moment. And again, like for me, it was baby steps. It wasn't like, block off all time in the calendar. I would love to say it was. I took baby steps. I blocked a half hour at first and I moved it to an hour. And then once I did see that the world did not end, was I able to throw in another one? And when people were like, well, can you move that? I'd be like, well, no, because you want me to do this. So that's when I'm doing it. Uh, I I became more confident. There's a whole module in Customer Success Leadership Academy about confidence because that is kind of the key to all of it. It's knowing you're right, believing you're right, and being comfortable with that, owning it. Um, and doing that in a humane way, not in like a defensive screw you way, but just I'm comfortable with my decision here. Here's why. You can try to change my mind, but it really came down to that confidence of this is how my time is best spent. I know that because I know what it takes to succeed. So succeeding over and over, knowing that math, knowing what I had to work on and what I had to say no to. Believe me, I still have that endless checklist that every month I'm like, all right, what's going to have to go in the parking lot? Because clearly we are not doing all of this. What has sat here for a month? All right, nothing blew up. Let's move it because I'm clearly not doing it right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I want to ask you one final question. I know we haven't had a lot of questions today, but we've got a very engaged audience. So people are here, they're listening, they're active. So thank you for doing that. The last question I'm going to ask you today are what has been the most surprising outcome of implementing the focus formula or being more focused in your work?
Gosh, how much more effective I was, how much more successful I was. I mean, the combination of that and like empowering my team to do more, like really learning how to delegate, which is also part of time management and also ties back to, oh my God, what if it's not me? What if they see other people are doing it and I'm not important anymore? Um, those two things, really combined to allow me to just triple the speed at which I could improve a CS department,
Oh, wow.
really take it to the next level. So seeing that, once you see proof, it's just like a no-brainer. Um, it was testing and implementing. Now the results, yeah, It's just you get 10 times the results because I know I have ADD like a lot of people. My kids both diagnosed in the last year and they were like, you have it too. We can like tell by the way you're talking to us. But I will go from thing to thing to thing to thing and feel so accomplished, but I cannot tell you what I did in my day. And to
Yeah.
me, that's things will sort of come together eventually, but I don't know when, I don't know what. Um, it's just not, it feels good in the moment, but it doesn't get anything done. So really tripling your effectiveness with half the work when I realized I could just shut my laptop at 5 and be like, I'm sorry, I can't. I was like, did people always know you could do this?
That's amazing. I'm laughing because I think some of the things that you're saying are just so obvious, but it's not, I don't think it's always very common amongst high
Just
achievers.
because it's obvious doesn't mean we're doing it.
Yeah. That's amazing. Well, I know we're at time. Thank you so much, Rachel. That was amazing. I know I took away a bunch of things. I know my team's writing notes, and I hope other people have been writing notes too. So thank you so much for such great insight today, Rachel. We really, really appreciated for being here.
Thank you. I had so much fun. I got to yammer away. It's my favorite thing.
Thank you. And thanks everyone for coming. This will be posted on our YouTube channel in a few days, so you can watch it again later. Feel free to connect with us with any questions and watch out for the announcement for next month's webinar as well. And we hope to see you all soon. Thank you. Bye bye.